Good morning. Next week we're going to have Ambassador David Friedman speak on Wednesday night about the Abraham Accords. It's a blessing that Israel was able to make peace with many of its neighbors and name these accords after Abraham, the first Jew. Why? Because the entire goal of Judaism and the Torah is to make peace between man and his fellow man. This week's Torah portion, we read the story of the Jewish people worshiping the golden calf. Moshe Rabbeinu comes down from the mountain, sees them dancing and celebrating around this idol, and he takes the tablets and he smashes them. But here we find a discrepancy. In the Torah, the actual word is that he threw down the tablets from his hand in the singular. But the tradition is to read it miyadav, that he threw it down not from his hand singular miyado, but miyadav from both of his hands. And the rabbis explain that Moses came down with two tablets. The first tablet is the commandments between man and God. I am the Lord your God. You shall not have any other gods. You shall not make a graven image, an idol. The second tablet, commandments 6 through 10, are man and man commandments. Don't steal, don't kill, don't commit adultery, don't be a false witness, don't be envious of your fellow man. So at first Moses thought, you know what? I'll smash the first tablet because that's the one they're violating. They're making another God. But I could still give them the second tablet to be good to one another, to treat each other properly. But then Moses decided to break both. Why? Because they go hand in hand. Obviously, being a believer and having faith in God means treating your fellow man properly. And treating your fellow man properly is part of having faith in God. You know, on Shabbat I met a woman and I said to her, how are you doing? And she said, Baruch Hashem, thank God, which is the Jewish response. And I said, I love to hear Baruch Hashem, thanking God. And she looked at me and she says, well, I always give credit where credit is due. Having faith of God is part of being a good person. Just like you want to show gratitude to others, showing gratitude to God and giving credit where credit is due is part of being a good person. But furthermore, when we have faith in God, then we realize that God has abundant blessings. And therefore we don't have to be envious of one another. We don't have to have strife and competitiveness and competition and, God forbid, cheat one another or harm one another or put each other down with bearing false witness to pick ourselves up. We realize that God is our Father in heaven, loves us all, and has abundant blessings for all of us. And therefore, just as God is giving and generous to us, we can be giving, loving, and generous and forgiving of one another. I tell a story about the banker, the wealthy banker in the 1900s, Nathan Mayer Rothschild. He was once in a restaurant, and after the meal, he left a tip for the waiter, and the waiter said to him, you know, your daughter was here last night, and she gave a more generous tip than you. And Nathan Rothschild looked at the waiter and said, of course she did. She could afford to. She has a rich father. When you know that you have a rich father in heaven who has abundant blessings and generosity, you could be kind and generous to others knowing that there's enough for everyone. And so yes, the two tablets go together. When we have true faith in God, then we treat our fellow man properly. And we learn the most important lesson in the Torah, which is the lesson of Abraham, to make peace between man and fellow man. Have a wonderful day.